Good evening, Danvers. This is Mark Zuberek reporting for the topics of the town. And I do have my wonderful turkeys with me, but they represent some of our favorite sons in the Beverly Airport Commission. And two of them basically represent the Danvers commissioners, which equals to two. One is half-time there or non-existent, and the other one represents the other seven Beverly Airport commissioners. So, Merry Christmas to all and Happy New Year, because this will be my Thanksgiving show. Thanksgiving, yes, Thanksgiving and Christmas show. The presentation you're about to see is basically a meeting that was held on December 9th, 2024. And I just want to recall some highlights of the meeting so you don't have to spend your time waiting for the actual presentation that I record at the meeting. Highlights of the first and foremost of the activities at the meeting was a recall of the commissioner, who is the chief commissioner, and there was a call for a no confidence vote for the chairman of the commission. However, the chairman did not even acknowledge the public comment that were highlighted at that meeting. So you will not see the final version of the chairman re-election, because that position was nominated back to the old chairman, who has been very restrictive in the public access to that meeting. They don't want to touch base with the regular people that pay the bills and pay the taxes for both Danvers, Wenham, and Beverly. The other item that was presented was the Air and Space Museum, and you'll see that in a presentation that concludes the 2.5 hours of the meeting, and the meeting extended over 3 hours, and it was even noted that this was the longest meeting that they've ever had at the Airport Commission. There were some expansion notifications where the airport commissioners, in their wisdom, are expanding further into the environment of the airport, and they're adding and renovating existing buildings. Civil Air Patrol was asking for an extension of their current lease, which the commissioners granted that lease about 9 months ago for a $1 a month fee, which was a gesture of goodwill to a organization that supports the pilots and the expansion of the airport. There was very heavy resistance from the airport commissioners, because they have, for some reason, got in their head that this organization is not good for the airport. And that was my assessment, and I'll stick to it. So that was finally unresolved. Right now, what they offered is the space inside the main office building, which is where the meetings take place, and there is enough space for them to use. They meet once a month. I mean, come on, people. Let's make this happen for the kids and the officers of the Air Force that support it. Then other items that have come up is PFAS. PFAS, which is the never-ending contaminant in the atmosphere and in the water, and this was generated through foam spray that was used to demonstrate how they can put out a fire on an airplane. The GZA is a consultant that was or is engaged to monitor and provide guidance as how this PFAS contaminant is traveling in the groundwater. And big discussion was that they needed 2 more wells, which were recommended by GZA, who is a consultant. And the big discussion was $48,000. Who's going to pay for that? Well, the city of Beverly owns the land underneath the airport. The city of Beverly is responsible through the contaminants that have been generated both in PFAS and in fuel that has been spilled. And I understand that there was 90 gallons of fuel that was spilled at one time on the Beverly side of the airport, and that is still being monitored because it is traveling underground. Another issue that was provided for was landing fees and the review of the landing fees so it makes Beverly Airport more competitive with other airports, because our fees have been so low that we were inundated with planes, jets, helicopters, and anybody else, because the fuel costs were so low and the landing fees were so low that it made it profitable for the pilots to come to Beverly. Well, that has to stop. Now, the biggest fuel consumer at the airport is 4 business jets, 5,000-pound planes that come and go from the airport on a regular basis because they transport business community members, which is fine, but they do not address the noise and vibration issues that have been identified over the years, and they need to address that. Another one, the final development from the meeting was a SMART objective. Annual review of what is the goal of the Airport Commission to be developed, and this becomes a wish list for the airport manager. The airport manager is a young man that has much training. He has been very effective in his duties, but the problem is that you can't tell the difference who is in charge of the airport. Is it the airport commissioner chairman, or is it the hired individual? And that has been an issue right along, because the commission is charged with monitoring what the airport manager does, but they so inject themselves into the operations and duties of the airport we probably don't need the airport manager because the chairman of the airport commission is basically running the operation. So why are we wasting $120,000 a year on an individual that does not or is not permitted to perform his duties to the best abilities? So the final operation that happened at the meeting, and you'll see that I even ran out of memory for my camera, is that the airport museum is trying to get located at the Beverly Airport and provide artifacts and history of the airport and plane museum for the public use of our community. The airport museum is a nonprofit that wants to locate at the airport and provide that kind of a service. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's a non-payer of rent or services. It's more of a accommodating organization that provides historical venue for the residents. And the final version of this presentation does not contain the final nomination and appeal of the chairman of the Airport Commission. Now, as you've noted, I have a recall of the chairman of the commission and a no confidence vote for the last 3 months. And they did not even hear that, or they did not want to hear that. But in the urgent manner this month, the chairman of the commission was reelected by the commissioners because the commission is made up of 7 Beverly commissioners and 2 Danvers commissioners. And one of our commissioners was even missing at this meeting, so he didn't want to be exposed to the vote. So, thank you for listening. If you wish, you can watch the rest of the meeting. It is boring, but I wanted to bring you up to date on the December 9th, 2024 Beverly Airport Commissioners meeting and the outcome of the agenda that was presented. So enjoy the show if you want to. If not, you're welcome to take a look at it at your leisure. Thank you and good night, and we'll be going back to our Christmas show. Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We've got a packed agenda tonight, so we will get right to it. Start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And calling to the roll. Commissioner Gillette.
Here.
Commissioner Willett.
Here.
Commissioner Doxey.
Here.
Commissioner Retallick here. Commissioner Kendrick.
Here.
Commissioner Koswan.
Present.
And Commissioner Zuberek.
Here.
And Commissioner Henry will be absent tonight. And Commissioner Gillette will be leaving early. All right, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes from our November 18th meeting. There will just be, there's a misspelled name. Commissioner Kendrick's name was misspelled. So we'll amend that? Yes, Bill. Mr. Crossman.
Under public comment, I see reference to Mr. Zuberek reading from a written statement, and somewhere in here I see that it's an attachment, I don't see it attached,
Okay.
and
I think Commissioner Gillette has that hard copy, so we will get the attachment and attach that to the minutes. Commissioner Doxey.
I believe it says absent is Bill Coswan, and also present for the roll call is Mr. Coswan, so he's both present and absent.
Okay, so then we'll also,
where it was
in spirit.
military related.
All right. Oh, okay. All right, so we have 3 amendments. Anyone else have, find any discrepancies so far? No. Do I have a motion to, accept the minutes with, 3 amendments?
Motion to accept.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Costello, a second from Commissioner Lay. We'll vote on that. Commissioner Gillette?
Yes.
Commissioner Lay? Yes. Commissioner Doxey? Yes. Commissioner Talek, yes. Commissioner Kendrick? Commissioner Costello?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuberek?
Yes.
And that unanimously passes. Our minutes have been accepted with our 3 amendments. All right, we will move on to public comments. We have anyone from the public like to speak? Mr. Zuberek?
Am I invited to sit at the table? Thank you. One of the notices that I noticed at this minutes of the meeting is that I suppose my notes from last meeting were not recorded in the minutes of meeting. Therefore, I brought an extra copy of the minutes that were supposed to be included.
Yes, and we just actually went over that.
Yeah, I know,
Commissioner Gillette has it. We are
I
put
just
that
want to
tomorrow.
reinforce it.
Okay, thank you.
So, as a matter of proper etiquette, I brought 7 copies of today's minutes, my comments. So you have a copy, every one of you will have a copy. What I'd like to do today is just go over some of the comments that I've made in the past. Open meeting law violation that has transpired. There were 2 meetings held in violation. And what I like to do is request that the minutes of those meetings be released to the public. And I would like to have them as soon as possible, because that's something that's necessary to give the public access to what was discussed, because those meetings were released. 3 FOIA requests have been placed before the airport manager and the commission, and they were not answered, except with the fact that there's going to be a $500 fee to develop that information, and that has been going into a repetitive process of asking for remedy to that situation. And we just received a letter from the solicitor, and so the letter was basically a repeat of the original letter, that is going to cost us $500 to get to that information. And it's not very distinct information. It's what kind of deals were made behind the scenes instead of at the table. So, I will pursue that further. Previous public comments are being trashed, and abutting residents are being ignored. These proposals are all previous public comments. Presentations specifically regarding environmental issues and the airport expansion issue as being discarded and continue to be ignored. I personally feel like the environmental issues that have been brought up over the last 6 meetings have been totally ignored. And I even approached your engineer to discuss that with him, but I just wanted to make that clear on the table, so I'll be talking to him in regard to environmental issues. Environmental issues have also been directed towards the Beverly Airport Commission in regard to the town meeting of Danvers has requested that an environmental report be prepared so we can understand what impacts are having on our residents, your residents, and Wenham's residents, because they are all being affected. The last item is your commission understands the issues being brought to the board as public comments, but is unable to move on any of these issues. It is because the chair blocks the discussion of any consideration of the residents' issues. Why are we even here? Danvers, Wenham, Beverly deserve better representation. I again call for the reorganization of this board. And I understand there's an action item on the agenda, but let me proceed. Therefore, I, as a resident of Danvers and one of the many injured parties, propose that there be a vote of no confidence of the current leadership of the commission. This replacement of the chairman should be considered post-haste, at which time the board may consider possibly a Danvers representative to be elected to the leadership position as chairman, or the assistant that has been appointed in the past. All appointed commissioners are equal and may assume board-elected roles as appropriate by the Board of Commissioners. So all I ask is that you explore the issues, because we have been dancing around in a circle, and the Danvers, Wenham, and even Beverly residents are not getting the response that's necessary to address the issues that are coming from this airport. You have attempted some have worked, but there are major issues, environmentally especially, that are not being addressed. And you'll be talking about one of them tonight, but there are major issues, which are the air, noise, groundwater, and the fumes. So please consider these, and I seriously want to address this issue about the commissioners, about the chairman, because the chairman does not want to respond to the Danvers residents to date. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Zuberek.
I'm willing to answer any questions.
Any other public comments? Mr. Bencourt?
So the only thing I want to add, if I may, and if you notice on my presentation, I have a green sticky on there. There's a quote that I use at my show all the time, and I rotate those. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Just think about that. That's something that's important. Thank you.
Hi, Antonio Betancourt, 15 Thorpe Circle, Danvers, Massachusetts. I'm here just to, come to meetings all the time. I mean, folks are all good folks. I don't want to or whatever, but we tell you these things. And you guys got to be a little more stronger with the airport and controlling what's going on around here, as far as I'm concerned. My honest opinion. The helicopters are coming back over the house again. Okay, it's not the news helicopters. It's the ones heading over towards Flightaway. Okay, they come over right over Wheelow. Okay, they're supposed to use the industrial park. That's how it's supposed to be. Industrial park wouldn't bother us at all. Okay, but it's happening more than ever. Every time I know I come here, it seems like I'm complaining, but I'm just telling you what's it'll be good now. Thanksgiving was beautiful. Thank you very much. I had the whole family over. It was nice and quiet, nice day. Day after that, not so good. Okay, the wind sometimes could have been a 1.6, but no, they kept 1.27. Okay, that's okay. And then this weekend was terrible. Saturday and Sunday was terrible. Okay, today was beautiful. Okay, they were on 1.6. I'm telling you. And then when they're on 3-4, the patterns, they're cutting them short, man. They're coming off the roof of the house, okay? Come on. I know they're not supposed to. You can show me on the map how it's supposed to be. Coming over the roof of the house, they're cutting it real close, you know, wicked close, okay? I'm just being honest with you. And we have made a difference here. I know you have, okay? Because I talk to people, okay? Even people in the prep area, a lot happier. They say it's a lot better, okay? I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? I talk to people, they know so what's going on. But you have to, make a force, pay attention to what's going on. I'm just being honest with you. You gotta put a little more pressure on these people, whatever, okay? Just like last week when I complained about the plane that took off on 2-7, the winds were gusting to 2.4. You guys said there was nothing. Believe me, that was something, okay? Come on. I mean, I'm being honest with you. You guys try to sweep a lot of stuff under the rug, which you shouldn't, okay? That's all I'm saying. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tony. Any other public comments?
Yeah,
Yes.
tenant, right?
We're gonna move on to tenant comments, if you'd like. Just give us 1 second, Clark.
Go ahead.
Any other public comments? Any of the public? No? Okay, we'll move on to tenant comments.
Alright.
Clark, if you wanna
By the way, the clock
come right up here.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. No, you believe me, you can hear my mouth anyway.
Yeah. We have Mr. Labby, who's a tenant here at the airport.
Alright.
Yeah, you gotta put the page in front of
No, I
you.
don't, because I don't
He doesn't
wanna
like
be,
the-
I don't wanna be on camera.
I
So,
like the kids.
but anyways, I've been dealing with this airport since all my life. I've been close to the airport, I've lived within a mile of it. I can tell you stories that nobody in here knows about the car races on 2-7 Sunday mornings. Tons of neat stuff. But I was active with Collins Foundation for the Bombers from 1989 on. And I've dealt with many, many, many boards, and I've dealt with several interesting head muffins, meaning Gabe's position. Last meeting, you guys were putting goals and checklists and everything. He's doing a good job. I can tell you a story about every person that's been in that seat. And every time I walk in, I own hangers here, everybody knows that. Every time I walk in, he's got an ear for me, he'll call me if I got a problem. So the problem with the airport is they hire somebody like Gabe. He comes in, he learns, he's good, he gets really good, and then somebody plucks him out because his job gets too difficult. So with the board, I would say, believe me, all the stuff that he does is really good, and I can vouch for that. I hate to be so nice to him, but he does do it. As far as the board, I dealt with many a board. This board seems to be good. I remember sitting here in the 90s trying to get the Bombers in here, and the questions were always extremely interesting. You guys always seem to lend an ear. As far as the noise and everything, I know I'm a Danvers resident. There is noise, but I'm kind of immune to it. Another thing I wanted to say was down by the cod for hangar expansion, you have an old grass runway that goes along the field. That should be looked into as an access way down there. And before you start doing pieces, you should have it surveyed, divide up the lots, and then lease off the lots, either being a half an acre, quarter of an acre, before you do that. But I would look into that access way to maybe start generating some income down at that neck of the woods. That's all I got, folks.
Thank you, Clark.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other tenant comments? Paul, you like to?
Sure, yeah, Paul, I'm here at Flight School. I'll just want to say a few words. I've been here just long enough, a tenant for 10 years, pilot for about 20 years. Just long enough to see a lot of faces and names come and go on the commission. And I just want to say that I've always enjoyed the support of and respected the work of the commission. And in particular now, I believe Kyle is a particularly present, conscientious, hardworking, and progressive leader for the group, and I just want to give my vote of confidence in particular. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Any other tenant
It all
comments?
started with Fuzzy.
Any other tenant comments? All right, we'll move on to presentations. Airport Solutions Group, Mr. Schuster.
Mr. Chairman. All right, the airport projects we have going on is the environmental assessment, the environmental notification form. Really not much of an update, it just takes time to put those documents together, so we're still doing that. The aeronautical study for 1634927. We were moving along very well, not that we're having any problems, but we did get some additional information from the FA New England Flight Procedures Group. So right now we're addressing those issues with them. What they did is the aeronautical survey that we did and we submitted to the FAA, they took that information and they actually already analyzed it, which you don't usually do by the time we've done our aeronautical study. So we got new information to work, some new information based off of what they look at, because these guys look at all your approaches, everything, LPV, RNAVs, everything, and they'll come back as far as if there's obstructions to it, and we have to figure out what we have to do with it, if it affects your minimums or not. So we're still trying to churn through that, because we got that information last week or a week and a half ago. It just takes time to get through it. I mean, Gabe's aware of it as well, so that's where we're at with that. So that project's still ongoing. Number 3, the fence project. So we are in the punch list mode. We had a site walk with the contractor. It was myself, David Lowen from ASG, and two people from Premier Fence. We went and walked the fence Friday morning, and they understand all the bunch of stuff they have to do. So now I just have to follow up with them. I asked them, hey, when can you get out here? And now I'm going to have to email them, call them, start coordinating like when they can get out here to address those items. Okay, so that's on that. The purchase snow removal equipment. So that was a new project for this year. Right now we have prepared a draft scope of work for that, and I sent that out for comment to FAA, MassDOT, and the airport. So this is part of the process. We get a scope of work, they review it, we give them 2 weeks to review, because that's what the agencies ask for, get comments back, make adjustments, submit it again, get it finalized, and then we have to go through the fee process. And Gabe, I don't know if you have thought about, you might want to hire for independent fee, that's something you might want to start thinking about soon, just to get them ready on board, so we can keep pushing forward with that. And that is all, those 4 projects. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone except you? Just joking, go ahead.
There's some NOTAMs for LNAV, VNAV minimums for approaches, which I don't know what they are. Do you know why we're NOTAMs for approaches? Is it obstruction issues?
I think that comes back to what Craig mentioned about the aeronautical study,
So
and some of that data that's been analyzed.
why would they remove approach minimums so they can't be flown presently? How are we impacted now by the surveys?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay. You have no ideas as to, like, past experiences?
No, this is the first time when Gabe called me and told me that there's an OTAM out for an obstruction, I don't know if it was a departure or whatever. I was like puzzled. It's like, if he didn't issue an OTAM, then who did? And I think it was the flight procedures folks. They might have done it. I don't have 100% answer on that. I've called them and I'm not getting an answer. So that was just interesting. I'd never seen that happen before.
Are there any obstructions that you guys have seen?
Yeah, there are. We know there's obstructions. Now, so FAA looks at a bunch of different other surfaces besides what we look at. We look at what surfaces are, what we're supposed to do per the airport design manual that FAA has, right? But yeah, the FAA flight procedures, they look at some other things that it's not our expertise. They look at other stuff. But generally, if you if you follow the surfaces that are in the airport design manual and clear those, you're generally good on everything else. All right.
You don't know either one.
I don't,
It could impact, it could be indefinite through the winter where people.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
My question is there a way to, okay, so there's a procedure to this whole expansion. We have to go through certain steps. We're finding the obstructions, you guys are analyzing, and we're gonna get a report back at some point of what the obstructions are. Then we go after removing those obstructions.
or we figure out what we have to do.
What we
about
have to
them,
do.
yes.
So I'm just wondering, does that procedure, does the removal of the obstructions fall under federal funding, state funding,
Yeah,
grant
so-
funding, or is
so
it like if
They
there's
issue-
one big
So if they
tree?
issue these, if they issue these NOTAMs, or if they are gonna change your minimums, because there's a controlling obstruction, they call it, a tree, vegetation, right? They'll affix their, your minimums, say if you're at 400, it goes to 450, right, for ceiling, right? Not great or whatever, but that's what you have to do, because you have them, but that doesn't mean, then we're gonna have to have a project, we're gonna have to probably adjust your CIP, have a project to go after these obstructions in
Those
some way.
specific ones, as opposed
Yeah.
to,
No,
like,
it would be, if we go after obstructions,
it's a whole.
it depends. If you have problems at all four of your approaches, we're gonna go after all four, because you
is
don't
there
wanna
always
lose your
gonna be
approaches.
more than one approach, or?
All of them.
Yeah,
all-
so,
Oh, I'm sure Gabe's on it, like, it'll be.
yeah, so then, when we have a project to do that, and then we remove them, then you can go back and they'll analyze your approach again, and your minimums will come back down. Unfortunately, that is not a quick process, especially if your obstructions are off airport, because if, that's very.
I'm just
difficult.
wondering if there's a route to go to speed that process up. If it's like an out of pocket, if there's like one tree at the end of 1/6 and
I'm
one
sure
tree.
Gabe can probably figure
If
it
we could
out.
figure that, like, would it be feasible to go after that one tree or two trees out of pocket, just to get those minimums back to,
Yes, it is.
for safety purposes?
It is, yeah, you can do that, you have to make a deal with the homeowner.
Um,
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the only way.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if it's on the airport property?
But then that would be reimbursable after the fact?
No, not unless you follow the FAA procedure.
Can we follow up next month? We'll talk to you in the next meeting, or we can talk, check in with you independently.
Yeah,
If it was a tree, could you buy eminent domain, take the top of it off?
that'd be up to the city.
I wouldn't even play with that. I just know from our canvassing that we did over the summer, the tree in, I don't know if it was in Danvers or Wenham, but that neighborhood on Old Burley, someone took down a tree, the whole tree,
When,
in one, I mean, it literally affected the entire neighborhood. Every homeowner that we spoke to basically was like, in that end of Old Burley was like, you guys came and took this tree down, and were devastated. So I would personally, I mean, obviously we vote as a board, but my recommendation would be to talk with the homeowner, get an agreement, figure something out before we do an eminent domain or anything like that, just respect for everybody.
You can definitely do that, like I said, if you want to get reimbursed, then you've got to follow procedure to do that.
Right. So something we can talk about next
So
week,
like I
get
said,
some more
it's
details.
News to us too, I'm not familiar with them issuing a no-tam write-off, I was shocked, I had no idea they could do that, I guess. So, we're just gonna, we'll keep pushing forward.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Yep.
Anything else from the SG?
No, any other questions, anyone? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Greg. All right, we'll move on to airport manager's report.
First, I want to check, Robin, how are we on time? I know you have to get out of here a little early.
Yeah, I have to leave by 7.
So if we need to forego my report, I shouldn't take too long, but if we.
Mine
need to
won't take
for-
long either, so we can get right back to it. It's gonna be more.
All right, we'll make sure to keep the discussion less than a half an hour. All right, so we will, we're gonna move the airport manager's report further down, or are we gonna?
Just, if you want to go one down, let
One down.
Commissioner Gillette, if the commission as a whole is okay with that, having Commissioner Gillette
This,
under agenda item 7, move up Commissioner Gillette's portion,
is everyone all right with that on the board here?
so she can have the.
Sorry.
All right.
That's fine. All right, so instead of the airport manager's report, we're gonna move to section 7, the second half of section 7, Commissioner Robin Gillette's discussion on the establishment of biannual community information events and continued discussion on the development of a vision and mission statement.
So, one of the topics we talked about last month was how to reach out to the community, get information from like the FAA, other organizations to community. And we had tossed around the idea of maybe doing twice a year some kind of open house. And we kind of tabled it to discuss again this week. I think, Josh, you might have been the one to bring that up. But I just wanted to make sure it got on the agenda so we had an opportunity to hear from what people thought about that and, you know, would it be an airport here activity or out in the community activity? So we just wanted to have an opportunity to talk about that for a minute.
I think unfortunately Commissioner Henry's not here, who would be our go-to Danvers Senior Center.
Yeah.
He wants to set that up as well, but we're
So
open
I
to
mean,
discussion.
I guess, you know, that's like a one-time event, and I think what we were kind of approaching was whether or not we wanted to definitively schedule twice a year to get out in the community, to have open house sort of atmosphere, invite speakers that can connect to the community, answer some questions that may sound very similar to what we answer here, but just, you know, having bigger organizations that govern us give explanations to people so they can see that there's a process that goes on. It's not just, you know, the commission making decisions. Personally and professionally, I love the idea. I think that, you know, if we pick the beginning of the year, 2 dates that we could do something and try to see what we can get for space in Danvers and in Beverly, then we'll know that that's what we're working on. I don't know if it requires a committee. I don't know if it's just something that we all just want to pick a date, you know, somebody find, you know, correspond with some, I don't know, MEMA, FA, whomever, you know, we want to get in for different issues that are relevant for that time, and then just, you know, present, whoever wants to go can go. Of course, we have to be careful of the quorum thing, but, you know, it's just, we want to be able to look at something that's scheduled, not just once, but know that it's going to happen, and then as issues come up to the commission, we, you know, might put it to the side and say that's a really good thing to pursue with the community, and just start with a list of suggested topics and speakers that we might want. So I just, you know, wanted to make sure it got on the agenda and we all got an opportunity to think, is that something we want to pursue? Do we want, what do we want for next steps to see if that happens?
So you're looking for feedback and
Yes,
ideas right now?
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, when I brought that up and looked into it, initially I would just think do something here, small, see where it goes, just invite the community, the neighborhoods most impacted, get some new voices in here, people we haven't heard from, and see how the space holds that meeting, who's interested in coming, and just keep it simple to addressing noise issues, community concerns, things that have been coming up. If it's overflowing, well then we have to look at a different venue, we see the questions that come up. I'm not sure it makes sense to invite all these parties in the first meeting and invite people until we, you know, just have an idea if it's 15 people from the community or 50 people, and the kind of questions and information that people solicit from us may help us figure out how we organize the following subsequent meetings and go from there. So that's my personal opinion, is to have them give us information, help lead where we want to go as a community.
The FAA representative that I work with to get materials for the kids' events, their job is community outreach. So they might be able to help you. I can send you their information if you want to start talking to them now.
Sure.
To see if they'd be willing to come to some of those things.
I'd like maybe one in Beverly, one in Danvers, and if there are enough commissioners that do want to go, we can always just post and make it official, so we're not risking quorum.
And I also think things I took away from the door knocking that Gabe told me about was that generally people responded positively. I think it was overall kind of like a good experience. People had questions. It was helpful. So I don't know whether we expect, you know, a large group of people coming in here with a lot of complaints, or similar to, you know, the sampling that you guys took of people's sentiments. I think the community really doesn't know how people feel about things and the questions they have. I personally don't. I can imagine the questions that you guys have answered and the interest people have. It sounded a little more moderated than I would have expected. You know, people sounded appreciative, understanding, had some questions, and I would think that a community forum here would speak to a similar question and answer, and then we can go do research, help out. Gabe can handle a lot of this on his own. He does on a daily basis, but
I was thinking, like, and I came up with this with Gabe too, is door hangers, so that we can just like, whether it's for this meeting, and like if we schedule those meetings, like one in, you know, February or March and the other one's in August, and we make a door hanger that says, please come on February, it's gonna be at the airport, and then it's gonna be in Danvers in August, and here's Gabe's contact information, and like, it just, because I feel like social media is great, door to door is great, but people aren't home, we don't control the Facebook page for Beverly Airport, and that's another thing that we need to try to figure out. But I think if we went door to door, and people are like, we've never in the history of living here for 40 years, never had anyone come to our door. So I think if we put something on the door that's neutral, that's not like, we want something, but hey, come and tell us what you want, you know, then we might get a better turnout than just blasting it out on Instagram or Facebook and whatever resources we have.
Could you also mail, just send something by mail?
I'm just thinking, it gets pretty pricey when you start including postage, but a couple days, everybody's got 50 flyers, we can kind of map out, you know, if anyone's got free time, you want to go hit one street and just throw up a couple. If you're not comfortable, that's fine, you know. We've had the police called on us, so, you know, there is that risk. But, you know, I'm willing to take that risk. So, but like, yeah, I'm sure like.
I think Gabe you have contact information from the people that filed complaints, so do we have a way to contact them and reach out? So, worry about that can be just a great beginning step for the first meeting, hypothetically, to see how our efforts of who we reached out to, how that worked out.
Yeah.
Well, we can also post it on the website, use that to refer it to the website and word of mouth.
Yeah. Well, if we posted sooner, if we talk about a March and September meeting possibly, and in winter, before the spring gets busy, and after summer and in September, and we post that, we agree to that, maybe vote on it at the next meeting, like a motion, pick a date, put it on the website, and then it's sitting there for the next 3 months.
If
So
we
Robin,
put
are
it
you
on,
looking for an agenda for that, or a date, agenda
No,
and a date? Or
Not at this point. I mean, it was more what's happening right now, and then I think the point was raised that we want to get some kind of feedback to who would draw in people. You know, what topic do we want to use to invite people in? And it could be a lot of work, or it might not be a lot of work. It just depends on, you know, if a committee is what we need, or to just, you know, pick the dates, get the, we got Bev TV, I'm sure Danvers must have a TV channel, right?
yeah,
And, you know, there's other ways to advertise it.
I'm friends with people who run BevCam, and
Yeah.
it'd be more, they told me that if we ever have anything special or
Yeah.
big that's going on, reach out and they'll be there with cameras, so.
Yeah.
So what's the next step?
I mean, I think the next step is, Robin, keep going, contact the FAA, and if you get overwhelmed, in the next month before the next meeting, you know, obviously reach out to Gabe or myself, and we can make sure, obviously we'll put this on the agenda again, just keep this discussion ongoing, and then, if you feel the need for a subcommittee at that point,
Well, you two can talk, you're not breaking O&L by just discussing schedule.
Right,
options,
right.
So you guys can discuss dates if you talk to Gabe, you know, so I don't think there's any conflict there.
but if you do get overwhelmed, and you
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's necessary to have a
I think
subcommittee.
it's probably more than a one-person job. There's a lot, I think at least to start out, because You're not sure, like you said, how many people are gonna
Yeah.
show up, how
What's-
we're gonna advertise, how, you know, pick
The Danvers Facebook page is phenomenal. That will get out to every Danvers resident, and if it doesn't, whoever's looking at it will get that to the next person. So,
That's a great recommendation, and also, you know, there are two parts to this. One is the component of public education, which I think can actually be FAA discussing, you know, there are probably plenty of topics we could probably introduce, or we should whittle it down to a few that, you know, would hold the attention of the public. It's also an opportunity to discuss ongoing concerns, which we can prepare to address over there. And also, it's important just to listen to the community. Just outside of this context, we don't always have enough time to take it all in and hear differing viewpoints, people who are wildly in support of it, those who are maybe more critical, but just to kind of get a broad array of you know, feedback. And it's also just part of community building and building engagement. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. I'm all for it. I'm going to be there. Just going to make sure I can have that.
And not to put her on the spot, but we have great resources even in our own room over here that might be able to answer some questions from the public about what they can and can't do from the tower. So if somebody from the tower was willing.
You can retire just before that day, right?
I have a date.
I think,
Well, yeah, let's see what we can find out,
okay.
and go from there. The second part, you know, it has to do with just understanding what our vision and mission is, because speaking for myself and being new on the commission and being asked, you know, right away to vote for certain things and not really knowing yet, you know, I'm learning it every week, every month I learn something more. But having a mission statement that guides any decisions that we make, having a vision of what we want to see as a commission, what we want to see for this airport, and then how do we get there? How do we do that? As a guiding handbook on how to make, not how to make, but you know, that guides decisions that are made that impact the community, that impact our neighbors, that impact the environment. I can go on and on. And at the last meeting, I handed something out, and it was a kind of like a review of just, you know, what are our values, what would be what is a vision for the airport? And we have a 20-year plan that's not necessarily something we created, right? If I understand correct? So it's like, how does that jive up with our vision and our mission? And my thought, and was supported by you guys, is how do we get there? How do we develop that vision and mission, and how to get it done? How to execute it? Yeah, exactly. So, you know, as far as meeting twice a year and having an open house, that's one thing. But I think a subcommittee on this would be really important, because you really want to identify stakeholders who, not just us putting in the vision, but making sure that people see that, yeah, okay, you've got the environment, you've got sustainability, and yeah, that's really important to this population. Or, you know, we have maintenance and safety, oh, that's good for that population, so maybe we should get some information from them on what they think about having a vision and what they feel like the vision for the airport is. So for that, I think I've done as much work as I can on that, because, you know, I got samples. There's one airport that's just got beautifully delineated their values, their vision, and then their mission. So, I mean, there's some great examples in there, and a lot of how-tos, and but I really think the next steps are going to have to be people figuring what to do next, who to talk to next. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I give one example of a perspective?
Sure.
Based on the subcommittee for noise abatement, I think scheduling a subcommittee and having meetings could be challenging. It's not impossible, but I wonder if you craft up, since you're pulling stuff together, craft up an example of a vision statement and the things you want. We actually do a 10-minute workshop in a public meeting and get some feedback, and maybe over a couple meetings we can actually, because it doesn't sound like it's going to be several pages long, or is it gonna be one
Oh,
page?
no,
half a
it's
page?
usually just,
Yeah.
sentence, you know, for each thing.
So if you come in with an example, and then we discuss it, debate it, it might be interesting over just a month or two to come up with something.
I 100% hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but it's much more of a collaborative effort to put something like that together. And to put all of that onto one person and then come back, it would be super, super.
I mean, I could do it too, I'd be happy to do it, I don't know, you know, it's as simple, well, it's not simple.
as simple as it seems.
It's not
Yeah.
simple, but I'm saying, if people want to do the subcommittee, that's fine. I'm saying if we put forward just an example of a couple of vision statements, I think you did some work, so.
I did, I
felt
got the
comfortable.
whole worksheet there. I think one of the big things for the subcommittee to do is to, what I did, it would be, you know, I pulled in information from everywhere to see, you know, what does it say on the Beverly City Hall website about what we do? What does it say on the airport website about what we do? What does it say in the city ordinances about what we do? What does the FAA say that we do? And try to find something that bridges everything, so that it doesn't feel like there are 4 or 5 different agencies or organizations. It's one that's working collaboratively together with the same values, and it kind of starts with the values. We hear from people who come and talk about, you know, we know that there are people that really value the environment, and that's what they want to focus on, and there are people that value the schools. I'm just throwing these things out randomly, but it's trying to make sure that, or trying to do the best we can to see that it's bridged across so that everyone can see how it's interrelated. And I think that's a bigger job than one person.
Yeah,
I think that, like Josh is saying, with the noise abatement subcommittee, it was very difficult to get the whole subcommittee together, post it, and Chris knows this firsthand, trying to get even just 3 people together to work on the subcommittee and to have that time to make progress is very difficult. But again, not impossible.
I don't think what I'm saying is let's not just have you do a mission statement, but
No.
if you put something forward, we can see an idea of what it is, and then people that want to contribute or interested, maybe we can form a subcommittee off of an example of a mission statement.
Well, what I'm suggesting is maybe if you want to set up a meeting with Gabe and myself or one other member from Not Breaking OML, and we can sit down for an hour and just hash it out. As long as we're not breaking OML, that's, you know, that's all that matters, and we just get something down, like Josh is saying, just a preliminary something to bring to the board.
It would be a brainstorm session without
Yeah.
deliberating, you know, but just presenting the information and writing it down without.
But I'm
So I
open
think
for an
risky-
hour meeting
I
or
think it's
so.
risky, I think she can do it with Gabe, but I think it gets
Yeah.
risky if you're not talking about scheduling or
Right.
organizational.
Would only be
I-
for the subcommittee then.
Yeah, but it's a question, really, for me, it keeps coming back, is something we should do. In my personal opinion, it is. And it should be over the course of an entire year, probably, for it to be refined. We could do it less time, but I think it's really important that, like, we hear from the businesses and all the other stakeholders at the airport. Because I mean, just even tonight, it was very valuable to hear the input from, you know, from our businesses here at the airport. This is what the airport's for, right? For a lot of different interests. And I want to make sure that we're representing those properly and kind of drilling in. And then also talking, too, about what do we want to see in the future? You know, how do we want to grow this airport, or not? Or how do we want to develop it? And we'll just, and like our chairman has had some really interesting and innovative ideas about how to reimagine the whole configuration of the airport. I'd love to hear those kinds of thoughts, and how does that comport with the overall interests of all the stakeholders. And that does take time. But I think if we commit to it, we will, like with anything, be able to commit the time, especially if it produces something of value that will guide us going forward, how we choose to spend our resources.
Do we make a motion for a subcommittee, or push that off to the next meeting, or
How do you feel, Ryan?
A couple of thoughts. One is, if we have a small subcommittee and we're talking about this particular topic, as long as we don't talk to other people about it, then that's following the open meeting laws. We bring it here to do the deliberation,
Mhm.
okay? So it will be discussed, but it needs to be discussed at the meeting. But if 3 people get together and they work on this in confidence, that's okay. We just can't talk about it to anybody.
So,
It's serious.
If you're creating a subcommittee and the subcommittee has 3 people on it, then we would put an agenda together
Okay.
post the meeting of
Okay.
the subcommittee. And then you can,
It can be as simple as discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
So does your-
They just need to know that it's available.
do what?
Did you have to post minutes afterwards as
Yes.
well?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the same person who does the recording for this, do the recording for that?
Say that again, the same person?
Who takes the minutes from our recording here, because I don't know if anybody, a 3-person committee to
Yeah.
get somebody to be the secretary for that.
That wasn't available last time for
It
I
was.
was the minute taker, so I published the minutes and was quite involved.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. But it was, I don't think that was a possibility that was not available.
Record it and let it translate, transcribe it.
Still have to, yeah, I mean, it's a possibility, sure.
Well, you know what we can do, we can
Yeah.
start with an individual meeting and just get the ball rolling and kind of iron out all these little things, figure out what's the best next step again,
Okay.
that falls under open meeting laws and see if that's the best way to go. It might not be, but at least there'll be we'll start the ball rolling.
Yeah, we can always double check with Beth too,
Yeah.
and see what her idea is on that, so.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so, we'll move forward, you'll at least have a meeting with Gabe, and,
And
we'll look to have something a little more concrete, come in January.
And this is also something with the community meetings we're talking about too. This is an opportunity to engage the community, ask these kinds of questions, stakeholder questions to the community too. Yeah.
I may regret saying this, but there's no point in putting off forming a subcommittee, like, from now. There's no reason not to do it right now.
Now, I'm not sure, why would you need to talk to the solicitor about?
Because if we were not gonna do a subcommittee, because we're just talking about the difficulty of coordinating that.
Oh, no, I would
it- it-
definitely have a subcommittee and have.
That's fine, so,
discussion and
I mean, if
workshop.
there's a motion to, create a subcommittee, we can move forward with that. I mean, are there enough people on here that wanna be a part of that subcommittee?
Well, Robin, I think just said she wants to talk with Gabe first.
Right, yeah, I think that
Yeah,
is.
why don't we do
yeah.
that first?
Okay.
Because, yeah,
Okay.
and see if there's any, what the options are, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
That way then we won't bottle ourselves into a subcommittee that,
We can always dissolve it.
yeah.
Just say we can't do
Right,
anything until we do that.
I'd like the
We
plan
should-
of just
Yeah.
Right?
a meeting first and finding out just from past experience.
That'd be great.
That we'll just move forward with how Robin feels comfortable with what she wants to do with this. And then, next month, we'll have it on the agenda, probably every month, for updates and whatnot in the terms of the
Yeah, and I
subcommittee.
guess my comment would be that everyone, the expectation for the development, this is that everybody actually either writes something or contributes something, so it has to be a collaborative. I've done this a couple of times, and it's very interesting, because then you can own it, and it just feels good to accomplish something that everybody has a stake in, and you use it all the time. It's not something that you just put in a binder and say, go on the shelf. It's something that's used all the
And
time.
I agree too, Jason, with getting feedback from residents, stakeholders, like everybody. And like we did it with the noise abatement subcommittee, was at least form our basis first and then release to the public for comment and
And in the
adjustments.
meantime, if you all have the handout from last meeting, you can go through it and see that, the values and the vision and the mission all work together, but it's all based on values, so it's hard to jump ahead to the mission statement without really understanding what we value here, and prioritize it.
Can you blind carbon copy the group and send out all those documents digitally so we have them for the record?
Sure, yeah.
And is it, we're not breaking OML if BCC a request to everyone to just send ideas and like a reminder, because I feel like
Sure.
we all get caught up in our daily lives. If you sent out something
Mhm.
that says like, hey, please,
Here it is.
here it is, give me some, try to do that twice in the month, or whatever you're comfortable with. But I know we all get busy and.
Does it all have to go back to Gabe and be disseminated together as part of the open meeting law? Or can we write that directly?
I don't think we can have that.
No.
That's why we're gonna meet,
If it's
meet
any
with
opinions.
Gabe.
Right, yeah, that's where it
Figure
gets.
it all out, yeah.
Yeah. But again, Gabe can be the portal for everything too,
Yeah.
if that's how it has to work.
If you send out an example of a mission statement, at least I have something to work with. Like, I'm not sure now, if you said, give me ideas, it would be great if you said, here's an idea of a, like you gave some last week, but if you can send that digitally,
Yeah, I have that on my computer, I can send that to
then
everybody.
we can work on that,
Yeah.
whoever wants to participate.
Yep, and then we'll meet and talk about this. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Right.
We need to check that.
Yeah, we just
Because
go
that's
that's why I
obviously-
want to double check everything first.
Yeah, I know that, like Commissioner Kindred, you can,
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you.
you can have a sit-down discussion with Commissioner Rattale and, kind of hash out airport stuff. When it starts getting into OML violation, is if Commissioner Rattale goes to Commissioner Roulette and says,
Exactly.
hey, Commissioner Kindred told me this, here's my opinion on
Right,
it.
right.
That's when you
So
start.
we should be able to.
I don't leave it that way. We've emailed,
Yeah,
I
we-
disagree with them, I don't think
Yeah.
you can do that. I'll just say it for the record. I don't think you can sit down and talk about things one-on-one.
Oh, sit down.
Scheduling, this is technically geared towards meeting, like scheduling issues or technical questions, but you can't just discuss.
So if I ask you directly in an email if you're gonna be at the meeting,
That's okay.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Because
We
that's
should be able
because
to.
that's scheduled.
Scheduling stuff.
Right.
yes.
That falls in. But if you were to ask him, like, how do you feel about the development of Building 45? That, he's saying that that's inappropriate, that's breaking OML.
Well, I think that's permitted, but if he were to tell, say, oh, I talked to Commissioner.
Right.
But then you have a problem.
Right.
What Commissioner Doxey's talking about is a guardrail, saying in order to prevent an accidental sharing of information that could be or construed as deliberation, if we keep it really stringent.
Well, I'm a chat GPT cripple, so I ask it these questions in 10 different variations and it keeps coming back to, unless it's about scheduling stuff or something technical, do not get together and talk
Something
about it.
technical?
Because then somebody will open an investigation and everything will be opened up, so it's better to just.
Can I suggest something?
No, Mr.
please?
Zuberek, we're not taking public.
Yes,
No, we're
you
not.
need
Do
a
not start this.
handbook from the state
Please,
about
Mr.
open meeting
Zuberek,
law.
please, we are not taking public
Well,
comment.
then
Thank
you're,
you. All right, we're gonna move on to the airport
Sorry.
manager's report, and Gabe,
Can I
anything?
say one thing?
One more thing, yes.
I've done that a million times. It gets nitty gritty, so what I'm saying is, the open meeting, I've read that book please don't interrupt.
No.
Please don't interrupt. Multiple times. All I'm saying is that there are gray areas that continue to come up. So in order to be most conservative and careful, you ask the questions. So we're trying to avoid any.
Right, and let's move on. Thank you, Commissioner Doxey. Let's move on. Airport managers reports, Mr. Hannafin.
Excuse me. All right, we'll start with the operations and fee report. So our monthly operations were down slightly, about 16% from last November. We're on track to finish the year with more operations than last year, but I don't look forward to being a massive jump at all. I think be just a few hundred maybe over where we were last year, as far as the full calendar year operations. Fuel flowage fees and landing fees. In fuel flowage fees, we saw a really big decrease in fees collected, but then a fairly sizable increase in landing fees collected. I will also point out that November is the first month where it can be a true apples to apples comparison, because it was November of 2023 that we implemented the new landing fee and fuel flowage fee rates.
Speak up a little bit.
Sorry. That we implemented the new landing fee and fuel flowage fee rates. So we are now kind of into the months that we can get a really good comparison on the effect that those Fuel tax revenue, nothing new there. We should be getting payment this month, I believe, month of December. We should be getting another one, so. We've already exceeded our budgeted revenue on that, so anything we get now is just going to be extra revenue that we weren't expecting in our pocket.
Question this,
Yeah.
Commissioner Henry asked about gallons being put in there.
He did, and my apologies,
Oh,
I think yeah. Let me make a note, and I will put that down for, starting in January. Any questions, comments on that? All right, moving on to our budget. Really not too much more to report on the current status of our budget. Everything is kind of moving along. Revenues, we're tracking ahead of where we had planned to be this year. Expenses, we're tracking behind. I have added the total that we currently have in the enterprise fund. So we're sitting at about $680,000 in the enterprise fund. Again, a lot of that will get used for our upcoming projects, namely the runway reconstruction project, where I think last estimates, they're going to be looking for a local share of $725,000. So that gap, we've got about 2 years of putting money away in the enterprise fund, but there is a gap. That gap will be covered with the City of Beverly, or has historically in the past been covered by City of Beverly General Fund subsidy. Any questions there? All right. On to noise complaints that I've received. It's not been quite a month since the last meeting, so over the last 3-ish weeks, I've received 3 complaints, all from 3 different individuals. This is an increase of 1 complaint. Last month we only had received 2 noise complaints. All of these complainants were in Danvers. We had 2 complaints about runway 27, 1 about runway 9. There was 1 approach that there was a complaint about, 1 touch and go, and then 1 just general. I think it was someone on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving who had the Thanksgiving early, and there were planes flying overhead during Thanksgiving meal. So that was the multiple one. I couldn't pinpoint an exact aircraft. It was just, there was a lot of activity out of the airport on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. One of the aircraft was based at Beverly. One of them, I guess I didn't go with the jet. That approach was, the complaint I received about the approaching aircraft was a complaint about a Cessna Citation, which is a jet. There was a Piper Warrior, which was the touch and go, one of our flight school aircraft doing a few touch and goes. And then the multiple, just several different aircraft in and out of the airport.
Did you talk about an individual that was a business day, that there was no restrictions whatsoever even in our
Right.
place?
Yeah, correct. I also got a call, it's not listed on here, because I don't think it can necessarily be attributed to Beverly, but I did get a call from a gentleman in Chelmsford. Just a general complaint about the number of aircraft flying over his home. He was kind, he's been keeping track of every aircraft that's flown over his house. I'm still waiting to get that list. He said he was going to email me the list of aircraft so I can see how many times a Beverly aircraft shows up there. We had a really good conversation. It's hard to attribute it to just Beverly, because Chelmsford, if you look on the map, is run by Fitchburg and Nashua and Lawrence, us, Bedford, Minuteman. So it's just, I think, a lot of crisscrossing aircraft going to multiple airports, but I did receive that call as well. Kind of a very generalized noise complaint about air traffic in this region of the state. So Any questions, comments on noise?
Well, what's gonna happen is, all the airports are encouraging people not to do all the touch and goes at one single airport. They're gonna be crossing over the communities, they're just moving the noise complaint from one place to another.
There you go.
Okay. Alright.
Yeah, that's all I have for this section. We did, when was that, last week, 2 weeks ago, that I went to Essex Tech. Thank you to Commissioner Zuberek for getting that set up. I was there with Mike Miller, who is with the state, with MassDOT, he's in the planning division for airports, and Tom Bear, one of our tenants who owns Clear Bear Aviation, the maintenance facility. And we talked to their automotive mechanic class about aircraft mechanics. I shouldn't say we talked, Tom Bear talked to the class, and a wonderful, wonderful response. Afterwards, I told Tom that he should probably be passing out job applications. There was really good response from the students, so just another success of getting out in the community and sharing about aviation and the wonderful opportunities that aviation has for young people. So thank you again, Commissioner Zuberek, for organizing that.
Sure, they're looking forward to having future things now too, they're very excited.
Good. Cool.
All right, anything else, Kate?
Nope, that's all I have.
All right. We'll move on to our discussion of the current and future use of Building 45, one of our favorite topics.
I want to step in here and just say we will have several speakers, presentation. I would recommend that the commission doesn't take any action at this meeting. I think this is a really good time to get information, kind of see what's out there, what's going on now, some opportunities possibly, and then commission can think on that for 1-2 months, you know, what that looks like, whether that's a more formalized proposal process or we reconvene, the commission reconvenes at the next meeting and gets into actual deliberation and discussion of this, but I think would behoove the commission now to use this as a time of just information gathering, ask questions, but that's just my 2 cents, but do what you may.
So before we start, on that note, is the commission in agreement with that kind of approach to this topic of not extensively deliberating tonight, but more of an information gathering process tonight, and then maybe January have an agenda line of a good deliberation about this, and then maybe February come vote for what we want to do for the future of 45.
Sure.
It doesn't have to technically be that exact way, but if we could give it a month or two, everybody like that kind of plan? All right, sounds good. All right, so we'll start off with an update from Javier and their current use of the office space at Building 45 and future thoughts.
Is
Yes,
okay here?
wherever you
Really?
feel.
Oh, okay. For starters, thank you very much for your support to date and helping us get set up in there. It was a big leap from imagination to actualization, and it's really been quite exciting. I like to think of the building in thirds, so we've occupied the first third of the building, that suite of rooms. Your open invitation, please. We're there, well, every day, but until well after dark. So if anybody would like to stop by, would very much love to host you, to come in and see what we've done. I passed around this little current, it's not a business plan, it's just a document saying where the objectives and conclusions and a couple of the offerings that we're working on and that we're doing. This, I will say though, I didn't think of it till I passed it out. This very much is an internal document, so it's hard copied to you guys in the commission, but it's not really meant for distribution beyond. There are statements in here that are affirmative statements, which actually are still pretty aspirational. So, if you just keep that in mind. Very excited about the project. You'll see at the very beginning, I don't plan on reading from this, by the way, except one sentence near the end. So Aviair Flight Simulator is the LLC, and it is a separate business, or will be eventually a separate business from Aviair Flight School, for liability reasons, for one. That's one big consideration. We don't have airplanes over there. But, we've come up with the mnemonic, or the abbreviation. It's really kind of stuck. We like it, AFSIM, so we're going to be using that. And we have a nice logo being built around that. Our big goal, as far as who we want to service and how, is to really take care of pilots who are looking to move up to their first professional job and move into the career realm. The opportunity to come in as though they were coming into their first flight department. We have all of the beautiful simulators. We have 3 rooms, each has a simulator in it, and the simulator completely swallows the room. We have now a nice conference room and a suite where we can entertain people before they head off into their spaces. But the idea is that the first product we're launching, I won't go too long, by the way, just at the beginning here. But the first product that we're launching is multi-engine training. Piper Seneca, simple, or any light twin, to be honest. But we're providing it in such a way as though the client were walking in, having been hired by their first professional flight department, where we'll give a really good, detailed offering on aircraft systems, things that are new to them. We're passionate about not drinking from the fire hose when it comes to learning something new, and we have the opportunity to provide that for them. And then to sit in the simulator, and the big deal about multi-engine, Jesus, never be a pilot here?
I think
Has that ever happened?
I'll with Jason.
You're not? Well, you seem like one.
It will be.
Okay, there you go. Well, the big deal about multi-engine is that all of the thrust is coming from here and here, and when suddenly it's only coming from here, what happens to the whole thing? Well, that is very daunting and intimidating when you experience it for the first time. We hope to be able to introduce it with a different element of threat so that the lessons really stick. And we also have their professional lives moving forward will be crew resource management, CRM we call it. And learning how to work together. These simulators have 2 seats and 2 full stations, and so we're pretty excited about that. You can read more about that. Probably the only thing I want to really read is just one little sentence. Basically sums up what I just said, but our array of offerings is designed to help growing pilots prepare for their next professional adventure and to help flight departments to prepare and screen candidates for successful employment experiences.
Sounds like a great mission statement.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, our mission remains to ensure aviation safety, increase the footprint of GA, not squash it down by creating over-intimidating, over-stimulating experiences in the warmest environment possible, which is our forte. So that's what we're doing over there, and we've completely swallowed that first third of the building. And it's wonderful. I mean, I've had one office, which then we moved another simulator to, so I lost that office. And then, so I went into another one. We turned that into the social media studio. So now I'm moving into a 3rd room, which is going to become the conference room. But anyway, so it is a little tight over there, and we also aspire to, I look at you because I know you're big on this, but we would love to imagine another piece of the building as an open format, large space where we could have STEM-oriented classes for any number of people. And that would be a nice extension and stretch So that is something that we would love to contemplate. There are 1,000 ways that it can be accomplished that are in no conflict with this guy over here. Mr. Denny and I have been friends for a long time. And everything that I'm telling you that I need and that I want is, well, you'll see, it is not in conflict with the other presentations tonight. More the merrier. Thank you very much. But most importantly, thank you very much for the opportunity to come as far as we have. Appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions for Paul?
Oh, please do, I'm sorry.
All the simulators are loggable? I mean.
Yes, they are. Yeah, very excited about that. They're legal loggable AATDs. You can use them for instrument, commercial, currency, upgrades.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to comments from Flight and Level Aviation on the interest in Building 45. Mr. Eichler is on Zoom with us.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Just first of all, can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, outstanding. I would be there in person, but it's snowing fast and furious in my home state of Maine, so I think I made the right decision. Yeah, we just wanted to throw our hat in the ring with respect to Building 45, mainly in conjunction with Javier, and our goal is to sort of fulfill the vision that Paul just outlined as far as making his vision a reality by providing the investment to accommodate their growth. We've talked, Paul and I have talked, and Esteban, and we've all talked on a couple of occasions about how we can partner in developing that building, and I think the direction we're going is effectively we put up the capital to provide the first class type space that Paul and his customers expect, and Paul becomes the tenant. Obviously, there's nothing in writing with respect to the agreement Paul and I have. It's basically just been conversations, but I think we want the Airport Commission to look at it as a team, candidate for the building. So multiple stakeholders, and we're all about investing in real estate on the airport, and if there's an opportunity there, we'd like to step in and see if we can, make something work that's a win-win for everyone. Javier is our existing tenant and customer. We've got a great relationship. So, from speaking only for me, but hopefully Paul will agree, we'd like to keep that going with the next phase in Building 45.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peter. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, happy to take any questions. And Paul, if I spoke out of turn, I didn't hear 100% of what you said due to audio, but if I spoke out of turn in any way, please feel free to correct me.
No, thank you very much.
Commissioner Zuberek has a question.
So in your vision of this, are you planning on funding any of the updates to the building? Or is that how that would work?
Yes, our vision is we would fund all of the updates to the building. Obviously, this would require, a diligence process. I've been in the building, I think, twice. That northwestern third scares me a little bit. But that middle third doesn't scare me as much. I think we're talking, a low six-figure type investment to get the type of space that Paul needs, and the existing space Paul's in, I think you may have mentioned, needs hardly anything at all. So, again, that northwestern third where the restaurant was, we don't want to open a can of worms. We sort of joked about the idea of somehow being able to just sort of carve that piece off entirely, making it go away, but I'm sure that's easier said than done.
Anything else for Mr. Eichler? All right, thank you, Peter, very much.
Thank
I appreciate you joining us for this.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, and then we'll move on to the last presentation from Massachusetts Air and Space Museum.
I need a thumb drive.
Yeah. You want to bring it to me, I can put it in.
All right. Either way, it may work. See what happens.
See.
Good.
Let me go in and share the screen.
We'll work with the sound going. Sorry for the delay. This is a presentation that's been hacked and put together. We originally did it for Civil Air Patrol down at Hanscom, and then we used it a couple of times for other educational purposes. And I'm going to zip through most of it if we get it going here. Slideshow.
May have opened as another window, separate window.
You went to slide 2.
Oh,
Oh,
there
yeah,
we go.
there we go.
Oh, this is a great presentation. This is Lucas Electronics in England.
There we go.
Okay, why don't you let's start with this. Can we do it? It's a video. Can you click on it?
Let me come over here
Thank
to
you.
this.
And then I'll introduce the people who are with me. We'll go ahead. But this is a short video. It's been truncated. Even on the bottom of the page, it'll show up. I brought my own projector. It's about that big and it disappeared.
There we go.
Well, on your screen.
There it is. All right. More better.
Mind if I'll switch it back to the first slide, just.
This is Jack Composi. He's our president-elect right now. Okay, right there. Why don't you stay right there? Can you click on that and make that work?
I'm guessing,
If you click on the bottom, it usually shows up.
okay,
Why don't I
I'll give it a shot, but
No, why don't
if
you
you couldn't
just-
get it, I doubt I'll be able to.
give it a shot? Go ahead through the slide.
There's a real lag on this. Yeah, I'm not sure this is gonna work.
Probably gonna work. Okay. It's impressive.
Yeah, let's go to the short history.
Okay, go ahead, back up a little bit. Get out of here. First of all, I'm Joe Dini, past chairman, now vice chairman of the museum. The museum's been around for a while. We were incorporated in 2007, so it's about 17 years ago. It was started out by a bunch of guys from Air National Guard, people down at Otis. They wanted to preserve all the material they had, and they thought they'd have a museum. And then Otis repurposed, and it's become a joint base now, and access to that place is zero. So that disappeared, and they went up to Plymouth, and then somebody came along and said, why don't we make this a full museum, and preserve all the artifacts so we can get our hands on of Massachusetts industry, colleges and individuals. And it goes all the way back, so I'll try and rehash the video. The video talks about all the things that happened in Massachusetts. It goes back to the first aerial photography ever done in the United States was done in Boston in the 1800s. The first attempted flight was from the Old North Church with a tethered airplane. I got arrested. So all that happened, and then of course all the way up through one of the first manufacturing companies was in nearby here for a converted Wright airplane that had the Burgess Flyer that had pontoons on it. And then you go all the way up to the Goddard flight of the first liquid fuel rocket ever fired in the world out of Worcester Hills. Up in the Worcester area, a company that made corsets developed flight suits for the pilots during the Second World War so they wouldn't pass out. And that's David Clark Company. And from that they got into communications. And you can't see a movie about aviation without somebody wearing a David Clark headset, and that's a local company. So I can go on and on about all the local aviation. If you're pilots or you're involved in aviation, you know what I'm talking about. We've raised over $1.5 million since we started, and we spent it all. The original original proposal was to be at Hanscom. Massport romanced us as a group because they were trying to become much more community oriented. There were a lot of complaints about noise and pollution, and so they thought having a museum at the airport would be a good idea, and they offered us 17 acres of land for 75 years at $1 a year, and it was a really good deal, except for the fact that to utilize that, we'd have to raise $135 million, and there is absolutely zero money for venture capital for nonprofits, and we're a nonprofit. So that really didn't happen. And then at the same time, Massport started pushing all of the general aviation out of Logan at the Hanscom because they were getting all those international flights they do now. We then did start doing the circuit, and we came here to Beverly. We were here in 2000, might have been 15, 16, and we looked at that building. The restaurant just moved out. And we were excited about that. We thought maybe, the ugly end was the northwest end, whatever, where the restaurant was. That would have, because we downsized our whole image from being a museum with airplanes and all kinds of stuff to being a museum that was dedicated to education. And so it had to be hands-on type exhibits. And we recognized that many of the youth today don't care about big airplanes. They want to put on an Oculus and pretend they're flying with the Blue Angels or on a simulator. And so we started to move in that direction. That cuts the size way down and the knees way down. And at the same time, one of our early people was Sheila Bauer, and Sheila was the Northeast Regional Director for FAA Education, and she joined our board. And so our whole focus started to really change towards education. And we showed up at our friends at Bridgewater State, and we showed them how to teach a little bit about flying, get their teachers program, and they just finished a brand new science building, and we put in a 20-foot display which showed the space. It was a space shuttle, and there's also some meteorites in there from Harvard. So we did a lot of stuff before we got to building a museum, a number of years. We looked at Newburyport. I can go on all the places we looked at. But just to give you some background, David has been with us, David Graham, and he's familiar with the people here, and he's been with us since the beginning. And he's past president of Aero Club of New England, the oldest aero club in the Western Hemisphere, and it was put in place before the Wright brothers even flew. It was a ballooning society, I believe. And David's been president there, and David's been on their board for years. And he's also been an incredible supporter of our museum. Jack Tamposi is now our president-elect. He's replacing Kevin Curry, who Kevin was a professor at Northeastern. Kevin's was a pilot also, and Kevin is now going to be going into his role of vice president. But before that, Jack ran our treasury and most of our statistical analysis that we've done since we opened the museum. His grandfather was the founder of Daniel Webster College in Nashua, and his dad is on our board too. My background quickly is I was involved in aviation finance for about 48 years. I arranged financing for over $2 billion worth of both commercial and corporate aircraft. I know a lot about airplanes from the money side. I know how to lose a lot of money, just buy an airplane. But I'm also a pilot. I taught a master's degree finance program at a college. And I was on the school committee in Lexington, Massachusetts for 6 years as chairman. So I understand education too and the value of it. And I think the marriage of education and aviation is fantastic. It's just an incredible way to stimulate young minds. You just watch kids when they get around funky with things like airplanes and airplane simulators. Next slide. We can't play that. Actually, I would play with people. All right, you were just talking about a mission statement. It took us 3 days to get this. The whole board, for 3 days, lots of donuts and bagels. And you'll have fun. I don't have to read it, go ahead. So, I've already mentioned what we were planning on doing, using artifacts. Go ahead, I'm going to get through this quickly. Some of the things we did before we opened the museum, some of the money we raised, we donated money to Middlesex Community College for the wing program. I mentioned the rest of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, we got invited to go down to Hyannis. Next slide. And
This is all the activities we did before we went.
yeah, before we opened up. Now so in about 2020, 2019, we got an invitation. Bud Barreau was the manager down there at the time, and he said they have a hangar that's going to be coming due in about 3 or 4 years that they're going to take back. It was its 50th anniversary, so the airport was going to take it. Might make a nice place for a museum. They also own the shopping mall. The airport did. The Kmart Mall, about 18 acres. The owner of the buildings in that mall are our friends at Market Street down the street here. And they were going to take this big strip mall that had a Kmart at one end and a big furniture store at the other end. They were going to revamp it and make it look like Market Street eventually. And the airport introduced us to them and they gave us a storefront, about 5,000 square feet. And we said, okay, that's really nice. We'll pay for the utilities, insurance, and we'll give you 20% of the ticket price. And everybody was happy. And we opened up and closed in 3 days because COVID started. And that really put a crimp in us. But once we had that museum in place, we were able to raise a lot of money. Because now we're no longer a venture capital. We're now an operating museum. And the artifacts came in. And so, leave that up for a minute. When that happened, we also got some donors. We started a scholarship program. The first scholarship was to an individual at Hyannis, single parent family, and he's now going into his junior year at Georgia Tech and majoring in aerospace engineering. He wanted to be a pilot, but he's 6 feet 9 inches tall, and he can't get it. Nobody would take him. The second scholarship went to an immigrant who got accepted at Cape Cod Community College in their A&P program, and the third one is now at Northeastern. So we did all of that. Someone donated us an airplane. It was a Thurston Teal. Anybody know Thurston Teal is? It's an amphibious airplane. It looks like a lake, but the engine's turned around. So we got it. The Beatles at one time owned that airplane. And so we auctioned that off, a public auction, and we raised $120,000. We continue to donate money, and we did something that it was really exciting. I don't know if you're familiar, but Logan and the FAA put on an annual career fair. It's an expo. It's been done for the last 20 years. They probably have 70 or 80 exhibitors, and 2,000 or 3,000 kids come in that hangar. It's a Delta hangar, and they walk around and they go to all the exhibits, colleges, and learn what kind of careers there are in aviation. I put together a package for you that lists about 30 aviation careers that aren't pilot. Plays with, and all you need, some of them, all you need is a high school degree, others you need a doctorate, but it's an important thing to do. We did the same, we copied that program down the Cape, at the Cape Cod Gateway Airport. And the last, we've had four career fairs. The last one was in October. We had 35 exhibitors, and 630 students came through from that area. And we're tied in with all the local middle and high schools. Go ahead. So the first museum, and it just gives you some ideas, some of the things we did there. The top picture is actually from a real albatross, which was flown by the Coast Guard up here on the North Shore and down the Cape. This guy, John Wood, he's since left us, passed away, but he went out there with a Sawzall and cut at the graveyard where the airplanes are, and cut the front end of this off, had it shipped home. That has all the instruments operating. They put in vacuum pumps and electric, it's all electrified, and that's in there. It's right now sitting at the Coast Guard headquarters, and they just let people look at it until we take it back. GE established the first commercial jet engine in the world in Lynn, Massachusetts. And so they've been a good financial supporter of us, and they donated a cutaway view of a turboshaft, jet turboshaft engine. That's fascinating to look at. We have, at the end of the tour, if you go through our museum, you end up on an 8-foot screen with a controller in front of it, and we have 150 drones in that software where little kids can get in and fly. If you're a little older, we have 2 simulators, fixed simulators. One is a Piper J Cup, and the other one is a 172. And visitors can sit in that, and our docents will get them to take off. And the graphics are up out of Cape Cod Gateway Airport, over the bay, come around, over Sandwich, and back in and land. And anytime anybody lands, they get a certificate. And you can't get them off. I mean, it was part of the tour. And so, again, we were looking at that hangar at the airport with the idea of putting the museum in there, bringing in classrooms and office space, and then also working with Paul at that point. Paul was going to come down and do a seasonal flight school down there, right out of the museum. And we thought that when people finish the tour, hey, you want to learn something about aviation, go talk to Paul and his crew. And so that was our first real tie-in. And we're going to have a good-sized conference center there. Next slide. The important thing we found out about aviation was that it's not only a man's sport. Ann Bedore was a big supporter of Daniel Webster College. They named a library after her and everything else. She was a test pilot for MIT Lincoln Laboratories. Ann was qualified in everything from a 707. She even flew a Hornet jet. She flew across the Atlantic several times. Great story. She became a great supporter, and that's the beginning of our Women in Aviation display that we had at the museum, and that encompassed about 30% of the museum. We had a space dedicated to the WASP. Those were the women who flew the military aircraft over during the Second World War and delivered them into Europe. There's a section on Amelia Earhart, who lived in Medford, Massachusetts at one time. There's a whole bunch of other stuff there. And so, anyhow, go ahead, I'm going to get through this. the two things happened simultaneously. The airport called us and said we had to do something about the hangar, so we started getting engineers in there, but it was gonna be a while. And WS, the landlord, said, I'm gonna start tearing apart the mall, you've got a month to get out. So we found a storefront in downtown Hyannis, right across the street from the JFK Museum. And we said, wow, people would just walk out of there and fall in our museum, it'd be great. And our docents and our volunteers, one day we moved everything out, we moved it over to a storefront, put it in the back room, and spent a year rehabbing the place. And at the same time, we were looking at the facility over at the airport. Engineers said, tear down the hangar and rebuild it. That was not our intent. So we decided to stay with the storefront for a while. The storefront had way more space than we needed. We thought we could subdivide it and sublease it. Didn't work out. Next. So let's talk about, that's that, go, flip it. Okay, a little bit about who we are. You know who I am. Georgia Pappas is now our, is now going to be our chair of the museum. Georgia was a member of the president of 99's Aero Club of New England. She also was a operations manager at Logan Airport. She's been with the museum forever. Kevin Curry's our past president. Jack, you've met. And Sheila Bauer is on our board, and Sheila is in charge of our education. Okay, we're affiliated with a lot of people. I'm not going to go through the list. I'm going to hand everyone a copy of the PowerPoint, our latest newsletter, and a list of the jobs available in aviation. So, move on. So, you know, what's our future? Aviation. Well, you know what our mission is, and it's clear that we need a place to go to right now. Everything we have is in storage in Bourne. We've got probably almost $750,000 worth of artifacts stored away. We're ready to operate a museum. Just give us the space to do it. But when I was thinking about this and coming to this meeting, I was at a meeting, a presentation. MIT was doing something about how to, you know, think strategically or whatever. And the lady that was speaking said, you know, everybody says, well, you know, you ought to think out of the box. And everybody all shaking their heads. And she said, what you really do is think out of the building. And I thought about it for a while, and I said, you know, this location over here, number 45, I know Paul's over there. I know there's other interest in it. What's wrong with thinking about a regional aviation aerospace pavilion at Beverly Airport, anchored by the museum, and the other facilities are in there. We would want to have probably a kiosk in there for the North Shore Community College, so that people go through the museum, they can get exposed to what other opportunities there are. Somebody mentioned Essex. It'd be wonderful to get a little kiosk in there for them. We would have we would have Aviar in there, and flight level aviation would fit in there nicely. The whole thing kind of comes together. Civil Air Patrol, we'd have them do all the kiosks so that they could recruit a little bit. And that's just the beginning of what this pavilion could be. So what would happen is, instead of, you know, once or twice a year having a big function here, you had a great one recently, is to have someone in there like Massachusetts Air and Space Museum, who's been able to now operate. We proved it, 2 museums. We know how to staff it. We know how to get people to come in. It would be instead of once in a great while, it'd be 3, 4, 5 days a week. People would be coming into the museum, get used to the airport. The airport then becomes a regional resource. And I can go on, and I'm not going to oversell it, but I think you see the picture is that with that kind of activity, it's a unique building because it's not on a tarmac. The FAA doesn't have to get involved. At Hanscom, we were going to be on the taxiway, and they got really nervous about that. Not only because of security, but because why shouldn't it be just aviation? You shouldn't have this stupid education stuff there. So we're you know, we're here. These are some of the partners that I talked about. The bottom one is interesting. I've already started talking to them. I don't know if you knew this, but Salem 5 is a regional bank here. They have a huge aviation finance department, and I worked with them. I'm on the board of AOPA's Aircraft Finance Group. I'm down back and forth to Frederick, Maryland. And I also thought about Endicott College. They've got a good management program over there. And when I list these people, all of them become resources to the whole pavilion idea, because you get internships, docents, retired people wanting to work here. So it's in summary, I think it's a great idea, but I'm prejudiced. Any questions?
I think it's terrific. What do you have in mind for now? What do you see in the future if you were to do something?
Okay, well, the ugly end of the building, if somebody can finish that, that'd be beautiful. I don't know if it'll take forever, but at some point in time, we don't have enough money to last forever, but we can. And that would be where we would go. And we're we're nonprofit, and so we can start raising money. We can't hoard money, so any money we generate from the museum itself, after we cover our expenses, would probably come back as a stipend to the airport. And then we start raising real funds, and I know there's property behind the parking lot over there.
Yes.
So someday, we may want to move the pavilion or expand on it, come off of it. That's the future.
Thank you. Let me just think out loud. When they built this building, which was what, 2015, plus some limits around that, they said, why don't you guys put on the second floor? Consider that. That's something else, expanding the thought. If it grows, and I can see this growing, I can see that really turning this place into a really regional asset.
Yeah, there's so many towns around here. The population around here is twice what it was down the Cape. Go ahead.
But I saw a lot of the volunteers like Candy Oldham and Becky and a whole bunch of other people in
Yeah.
their pictures.
Yes.
Like you have a big volunteer base down there, and I know Georgia lives on the North Shore, but are there other volunteer bases that you have here to work on the museum?
That was gonna be my question, was staffing, and I know you guys, I think, I don't know.
We have one staff paid person that can run the whole thing. We need about 8 volunteers, docents, and there's probably enough retired people, aviation people around here. That love to talk, that love to tell stories, that love to bullshit their way out. Classically, we didn't know anybody down there when we opened the museum.
To add some color too, the population of Cape Cod in the winter is 229,000. In the summer, it's 500,000. So it's extremely hard to run any kind of business, any kind of organization down there because there's so much seasonality. And I mean, think of like running a restaurant. In the winter, you've got nobody. Then in the summer, it's total chaos.
You have people living down there in air parks where they don't exist up here.
No, you're right, yeah.
So, yeah, I think finding volunteers in a major population hub would be pretty easy task for us.
Yeah, we know what, we have, we know what it's like to staff the museum, and, we'd start out by opening 3 days a week, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But then, every event that we want to run here, we'd be there. In that room that Paul would like, that big room, we'd hopefully, when he's not using it, we'd have fourth graders coming in with their teachers, walk around the museum and then sit down and give them a project, build an airplane, do something. And we've done that down the Cape. That really turns on the kid. It really does.
I know Home Depot does that first Saturday of every month.
Yeah.
You can come in with your kid and build something for free.
Yeah.
And so if you run something like that, it would be.
When you're sitting on a big asset here, and, now I don't know about upstairs, I don't know if the FAA lets you go upstairs here, but we can go lateral. We don't have to go.
So Danvers and Beverly Public Schools are interested in aviation, but Lynn Public Schools are really big about bringing an aviation program, like a pipeline to work program. So if you do end up here.
Yeah, because they show up at the Logan Expo every year. The buses come in and the the kids come out, and the EAA group up in this area brings all their airplanes down to Logan. And the kids crawl all over them. But, you know, but they really get, where the lines are, is on the simulators, the Oculus and all that kind of stuff.
So are you looking for some in-kind contribution to?
We're looking to partner with you.
Partner, okay.
Okay, I see this whole thing as a partnership. It's different. I'm thinking out of the building a little bit. Instead of landlord tenant, we're thinking about, hey, we can do something you can't do, and you have something that we don't have. And let's figure out how to make this work. And it's like, I think as you said, this is just thinking, out loud thinking here. And you've got a lot of thinking to do, but I'm available to talk about anything you want to answer questions, but it's an opportunity for both of us, I think, and for the region.
Now, is this something, so Flight Level was talking about working with you guys. Would Flight Level, I can't see them anymore if you're still here.
Mostly with Paul.
Okay.
We haven't talked to them much. They've got pockets.
They do.
And I'll find them. We have ceased all fundraising because we don't have a building right now. We're not in a museum. But I know as soon as we turn it on.
Well, you seem to be the only party that's interested in that part of the building, the old restaurant. If they'll sponsor it, you guys want it.
Well, walk around, don't step in the holes.
No, I know, if you have pockets you can tap into, and it sounds interesting because
But
it's one.
if we can, and you have some resources too, and you have to think about sharing because it's going to be a partnership. So, I'm not shy about asking for money anywhere. And I'll tell you one thing. I've worked in the profit industry all my life. I loved it. We'd steal money from the poor and give it to the rich. It was a beautiful way of making money. But being in the nonprofit sector stinks. It really does. It really is. Because the wave changes. 5 years ago, we could ask for money. If we had a museum, we could ask for money. We'd have people lined up to give it to us. Today, unless we're a hospital or you're taking care of, poor and indigent, there's no money for museums. Even for Museum of Fine Arts, all the museums are struggling right now. So, anyhow.
And just so you know, like, as part of the 99s, we give some of our money, we donate it to the museum.
Yeah, we
They're very supportive of it.
So. This thing just dawned on me when we came up, after we met with you. Just to take a look, because David said you ought to go in and look. It's a different concept for us now. It's not, but it is, because we would manage the pavilion. You wouldn't have to manage anything. If you wanted to have an air show, yeah, fine. We'd make sure we got the right people. That happened down at Cape Cod Gateway Airport with the career fair. We jumped in, we took over, we donated tents. Some of the schools couldn't get buses. I went out and knocked on doors and got banks to put money up for renting a bus for the schools.
So Kyle, how many people were at the air show here a couple months ago? 10,000?
Gabe would know the numbers better than myself, but I think that, like you said, we do need to think outside the building, and it seems like Paul and Peter have spoken about the future of 45, and since I've come onto this commission before being chair, it's been my dream to have a museum on property. I've been itching to get that cod dragged over here, put behind the helicopter and cleaned up. And
Oh, the S2S?
yeah.
I flew on that in the Navy. Not that one.
Right.
I was on the
But
insurance-
that's been something that I've
Yeah,
wanted to
be
do,
fun, yeah. What a project.
since I've been here. And we obviously need to all speak about this as a commission, and, but I think, like you said, you seem to be the only one interested in the old restaurant. I think if we can all work together here, which I think this commission and management has been really good at doing, is working together with the tenants, with the towns, Jesse with her outreach and the 99s and everything. I think this will be, I think we can figure something out for sure. And I think having like a job fair, you're having 35 exhibitors. If we're a destination and every other year we're doing air shows, I truly like all of this very, very much. Yes.
And when you think about it, the concept of having, I was responsible for this building. The concept of having a museum here is a natural. There's so much history in this area, aviation and otherwise, and the airport has been here since the 1920s.
And I can tell you all, he soloed here.
Sit down. Okay. Give it a shot. Take all those
But, no, I really appreciate you guys coming out multiple times, getting this presentation together for us. I think 45 has been the bane of our existence for quite some time. It's coming up on at least 2 years of us all hearing about 45. And from my beginning here on the board, there's been no interest in 45 to an abundance of interest in 45. And again, like what we're trying to do with our mission statement, what Commissioner Henry, unfortunately who's not here, has always said is, why are we doing this? What does it accomplish? How does this affect us moving forward? How are we bettering the airport? You know, I think this is a really great. I think just hearing from Peter Eichley and from Paul too about their future and incorporating this as well. I think that this is, with our deliberation next month, I think we're going to get a lot on the table. It's going to be really great. Yes.
Yeah, I second it. And what I love about it is this lovely blend of honoring history, because this does have, 1920s, there's all kinds of history there. I love history. I love to honor that. But also this blbeautiful blend of the future, right? And what Paul's doing. And it's also educational. It's outreach. It brings the community in. It's got it ticks all my boxes.
I like the pavilion, the kiosks. I think having every aspect. The 99s have their own thing. AOPA has their own. Like if we can, and it's great because you guys will be doing the outreach to get that stuff to come in. You know, it's not on our shoulders, and we can watch it grow. Right? So I think, yes, Bill.
Two quick questions. What I sense coming from you is mentoring into the aviation field. I think that's absolutely critical. We've got flight schools, we've got North Sheriff, everything else, but we need a center to provide that mentoring. That's what I think coming from you. My other question is, say that we would make a decision tonight or a month from tonight, how fast could you be there? How fast does it get fixed?
Right. That's the question.
If it was fixed now, we'd be there in a week.
Well, maybe there's a sponsorship, like Certified is very good at sponsoring. If they could have, a constant placard in there.
Who's
I'm just talking about getting sponsorship.
That's what
to fix the building.
I started whispering in their ear about it, giving naming rights. This is the.
I think that, but our first step is to come back next month.
Yeah, you guys have to figure out.
Deliberate. And I mean, I think we're all very much on the same page. But again, there's going to definitely be some hoops beyond what we are going to talk about. But the building is slated for aeronautical use only. So we would have to jump through, which is Gabe's forte, is trying to find out what we have to do with the FAA and with Paul and with flight level. Just figure out the logistics. There's going to, and then beyond that is figuring out the logistics of fixing the building. And if Peter's willing to do the middle section, and we're gonna put in on part of the section and then what you can fund, there's a lot of logistics.
Yeah, I think.
It used to be a restaurant, so you could sell donuts and have the rest open up. Right?
No, the change of use is what delayed us down in Hyannis, by the way.
Right.
That building was a charter school we went into on Main Street, and it was privately owned, and so we had to a lot of deals we had to make with the town.
Yeah.
Well, and we found out later on after we opened that the town owns the building where JFK Museum is, and it was like anything they want to do, and they also own the museum with the Maritime Museum, the building with the Maritime Museum. So
this is a venture I think is worthwhile, because this is now us dealing with another municipality, which I think is where we belong.
Yes, Bill?
Question for you. How many money is it gonna take to get that section usable?
I can't throw numbers. I mean,
How much of it?
Paul, my predecessor, has thrown 600,000. I've heard multiple numbers from multiple different people. And again, it's not just a contractor coming in and giving us a quote. There's more, like, we had contractors come in and looking at as-builts and all different things to get through that. So even if we did vote tonight, this is many months to get everything in line, and then